go from current humans to Homo luminous?
Sure, just
there's a missing link right now. There's a gap that the scientists can't figure out. How did we go from this to current humanity? And then, the possibility, what if there's a leap in evolution, just like this cycle that we're going through right now?
Or it could be not only like the butterfly, but like the tadpole turning into a frog.
Exactly.
If it can happen in other parts of nature, why are we so naive as a species to believe that it can't happen to us?
Right, exactly. And, another thing is, considering we're on this planet with 5 senses to traverse the Earth. And just because we can't perceive it, we don't have a tool, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the bandwidth of light, if you look at the center of it, say, for lack of a better way of doing this, so we're on the radio, but say that you can see an inch of light in the center. What's beyond that? I mean, there's infrared and ultraviolet and on and on.
Sure.
But just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that's the same with your question earlier about how do you know that local or long-distance energy works. When you put the intent out there, the intent is nothing more than an energy. It's the same with the cell phone. I mean, it boggles my mind that I can text somebody and in an instant they have it. Well, it's a form of energy. And it's the same thing with energy healing.
But when you're using a text, when you're using a cell phone to text, do you know the technology behind it? Do we know the technology behind distant healing? Again,
this is what it comes down to. There are so many mysteries that we don't know or can't explain, but just because we can't perceive them or explain them doesn't mean they don't exist. It's the same with like gravity. I mean, some scientists told us that there was this gravitational pull that keeps us to the Earth, and we don't have a physical tool to measure it, but we know that it exists because we've created tools.
Well, hold on. What do you mean we don't have a physical tool to measure gravity?
How could you know that gravity even existed within your body? You have 5 senses to know that.
Well, it's very simple. I see something fall to the ground. I use my sight as my way of deciphering whether or not gravity is there. Like that's a no-brainer.
Well, the way I look at it, I mean, that was something that was defined by somebody, and there was a tool that they had to
Sir Isaac
develop
Newton.
in order to measure.
Well, we also know about the different G-forces that are put onto the human body as we increase in speed.
Right, but these are external tools. My point was that just because you don't have a tool in your body to measure it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just like I guess a better example would be the bandwidth of light. You can't see certain things, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Let's just go with that.
All right. How does New Age medicine or alternative medicine or energy deal with emotional problems? Okay, we kind of have a basic understanding of how it works with physical needs and physical problems. How does it work with the emotional problems a person may have? Well, here's the thing.
I mean, I really think that the human body, it's made up of course, the physicalness at which we can measure. And, you can almost tell when somebody has a mental disorder because they're irrational thought, maybe. And the emotional is the same. You cry or you laugh. And all of these things, I mean, being a human being on this planet, I think we're spiritual beings living out this human experience. And when you start to study the energy of a person, and there's energy centers, they're called chakras. And if you do further research, you see that the chakra centers are closely related to the glands of the body. And if you're out of balance or you're out of sync, a lot of things can be, that's where the word disease comes from, disease. So it could affect you mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually. So, I mean, it can affect all aspects of the human being, is the best way I can say it. And by putting people back in balance with the energy, you can, and most of this, again, is the individual person's belief that they're doing it. And of course, it is not me that's doing the work. It's somebody outside of myself because, like I said, I'm limited with my perspective of what I can do. My intent is to help heal the person, but internally I can't physically see into them to say this is exactly what's wrong. Tell
me about the vibrational aspect of of life and our existence and how different vibration frequencies work with us?
Well, this is my own belief. I really think that each individual person has their own vibratory frequency. I mean, everything around us is energy. Mm-hmm. We perceive it as a solid mass. But I think if you do some research, I really, I don't have any quotes right now. I guess I should probably start doing that to prove that they show in science that, each item may have like a frequency to them. The way I look at it, though, with humanity, if we're being specific, is each individual person carries a frequency. And by simply walking the earth, if you get into someone else's energy and say they have a lower vibratory frequency than you, I think that the individual that has a higher frequency helps raise another person's frequency. That's my personal opinion.
But wouldn't one frequency cancel out the other frequency, bringing us to a zero existence?
I don't see it that way. I think that energy is constantly moving, and I don't know that there's a cancellation of any type. I think it's just matches, maybe, and those who don't match can't stay around the other ones. And if you're looking at it from the eyes of energy, certain people don't feel right. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have this feeling like, oh, I don't really like that person. I don't know why. I just don't feel why. And I think that if you go deeper and you look at it in energy, their vibration is at either at such a high state or such a low state that it just, there's some people that are lower vibrational frequencies, and when you get into their energy, you're like, oh, man, I just don't feel right around that person.
Are they the kind of people that seem to, just bring us right down and suck the life right out of us?
Exactly. You know what? A lot of these people don't know that they're doing it. Again, this is all new. This is kind of like cutting-edge stuff that we're talking about here. So for me to give you concrete evidence and proof, I just have a knowing through my research and through my experiences. So, I want everybody that's listening to use their own discernment about what I say or anybody else and do the research for yourself. And if it fits you, then, you can use it. But if not, then, there's nothing that's concrete.
Each to his own.
Right.
Okay, I was wondering if you could explain your views on humanity's highest potential. For example, brain function, DNA, and so on.
Yeah, the way I look at it, there was a man that walked this planet named Jesus Christ, and I think, in my opinion, that he had his DNA and his brain functioning was actually higher than anybody else's on the planet. He incarnated into this physical life with this stuff. And I think when he was teaching what he was teaching, he was talking about unconditional love, and that means no judgment towards anybody else. And by virtue of him having his DNA turned up, I guess, or his brain function turned up, he had these other abilities, and I think that's what he was teaching us also, is he said, you will do these things and greater things. So why can't we do them now? Like, why do we feel like we're so insignificant at this stage in human history that we couldn't have that potential? Mm-hmm. I think that's what that Homo Illuminus in this ascension process is about right now.
Reminds me of the chapter 7 of St. Mark, where he says, "Judge not, that ye not be judged." It's basically the same thing.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
And, can you imagine if you would look at, say, the angels or these masters that are, looking out for us, and if they see us in unconditional love, that means no matter what you do, you don't do any wrong, because we're all trying to traverse this and try to figure things out for soul lessons or to help other people, however you want to look at it. But if you're looking at somebody and say they committed a crime, many times, even if it's simple things, even if it isn't a crime, maybe it was something that you saw somebody do and say, you can't believe they're doing that. Well, then you find yourself doing the same thing maybe in the future, or maybe you've done it in the past. So you shouldn't judge anybody else. You don't know what their situation is. So many times patients would come in here really depressed, and if I was to judge them, I'm like, oh, just go get a job. But, then you hear their whole story where the mom, the husband left her and she had 5 kids and she couldn't work because then she wouldn't have health care. Mm-hmm. You just don't know their story. So for you to sit there and judge them when they have, say, food stamps and they have a full grocery cart full of groceries, you don't know what they're really going through.
Exactly. Listen, you know what? I believe that there's a lot to be said and a lot to be learned when it comes to naturopathic medicine, alternative medicine. And I believe that people like yourself, Dr. Joe, are on the cutting edge. And I may have come off a little hard on you in the first part of the interview because I need to know where people stand.
Right.
Okay? And I'm telling you now that I like where you're coming from. And I believe,
thank you.
and I believe that you've got people's hearts and the listeners' interest at as your priority, and I applaud that because there's so many people out there, Dr. Joe. I'm sure you've met them in your practice, as well on radio shows that you do, that are just out there to con people.
Right. Well, again, that's why I always teach this whenever I'm doing my lectures or when I'm on the radio show. Don't listen to each. I mean, listen, but use your discernment. We're all given this discernment about us. If it doesn't sound right, here's another thing, Rob, that I found out. And I thought that if I do all this research and I would travel across the United States and capture the Phoenix Lights on camera, which I did, and I met the psychics and all this other stuff. I did all this research personally, and I paid for it myself. I thought that once I found the truth, I could tell it to everybody. But you know what I found out was each individual person's truth is different.
Exactly.
Last week my truth was different than it is today because I'm growing, I'm constantly learning.
And you know what I found, Dr. Joe? I don't mean to cut you off, but our timing is getting very short here on this segment.
Sure.
There are those people out there who really do not want the truth. They say they want the truth, but they don't want it. Because as long as the truth remains a mystery, they have something personally to gain.
Absolutely. We could get into that after the break. I can talk a little bit about that too.
Sounds like a good plan. Dr. Joe, great having you here. We'll have to have you back on in the future because we're not even getting nearly done what I wanted to talk about this hour. Exonation Dr. Joseph Marra is our special guest. www.aguidinglite.com. That's www.aguidinglite.com. And don't forget, Exonation, the Body, Soul, Spirit Expo is coming to Toronto, Ontario, February the 17th, 18th, and 19th at the International Centre, 6900 Airport Road in Mississauga. I'm going to be the special master of ceremony. We're going to be having a booth at the event. We're going to be selling the X-Chronicles newspaper, T-shirts. We're going to be doing our show from there. So drop by and see us. If you would like to become an exhibitor at the Body, Soul, Spirit Expo, go to their website, www.bodysoulspiritexpo.com. Chandler Armstrong is the gentleman that you need to deal with. Give him a call. Tell him that you heard about the Body, Soul, Spirit Expo on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. And see what he can do for you. They're great people. I do know for a fact that they have a very few booths left. So once again, www.bodysoulspiritexpo.com. Dr. Joe and I return after this break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.